Okay, I decided to start recording this session, so I have an easier way to look back on the hands that I've played, and to also obviously record my thought process. So when I review the session later, to see if there's any uh, errors in my thinking when I'm thinking on the fly, instead of like having a lot of time to analyze. There was actually one hand that we just played that I'm unsure of if it is the correct fold versus population, since I don't see too many overbets. Okay, it was actually versus this player that just happened. I guess we'll play our jacks first uh, before we continue. Here, we don't really need to choose that large of a sizing. I mean, this person is probably just all in regardless. Okay, I mean, okay, I guess we fold, and let's see what he has. Okay, I mean, alright, we obviously just made a huge mistake. So perhaps our fold earlier was bad versus him. We can't, well, hit the queen, so good fold in hindsight. But this guy is just overly aggro, I guess. So anyway, the hand that I was talking about is one that I starred. I don't know how to get to it quickly. How do I get to it? With the backdoors, we're definitely continuation betting this. Apparently, we should not be using that small of a size to prevent getting leveled by raises. I mean, I've studied my spots pretty well so that like I know how to respond versus raises. And facing someone that has like sporadic raises, I think I have very easy decisions. Here the SPR makes it so that I can size an all-in for three streets, and I think the population, especially on these like higher Broadway cards, they will fold to aggression more often than not. On lower boards, it's a little bit harder. Okay, facing this raise, we just fold. But I have seen a lot of people just fold to like two bets, since they do continue with a lot of their under pairs and lower pairs. Facing a second barrel on the turn, they do fold a lot. This is not the case for like middling boards like 7 high and 8 high boards, and obviously just very low boards, they almost never fold those to two barrels. Okay, but anyway, the hand I was in question, and let me top up really quick, was we have ace queen of diamonds. We have ace queen of diamonds, and we raise, and we get 3-bet out of position by this particular player. And we call. The flop is ace 10x. He bets very large. I think 700 into 810. And we obviously call. The turn is a king. He checks, which is a little bit weird. But obviously we don't want to be playing for an all-in pot versus a player that is likely too tight in his 3-bet range. Obviously we know this is not the case now, but during the hand it was like we only had like 2 or 3 hands together, so we couldn't possibly have known that. So we check behind on the turn. Obviously there's merit in betting, but getting jammed on is just really a disaster, and we likely only have 4 outs in that line. So we want to keep ranges slightly wide and just play our ace queen in a line that gets 2 bets of value, since it's very unlikely we get 3. Okay, we're going to be ISOing Jack 10. on the button. And then on the river, it's just a complete blank, and he 2x jams the river. So we end up folding. We have no time banks left. I need to get some more diamonds, but I think Orga said the bankers were broken or whatever that means. We're going to start this off with the continuation bet, obviously. It's a very high equity hand. And we will not be folding at any time. And here we have we can bet one more time to push equity and also build a pot for when we do hit either the straight or the flush. We do block some of the 9-10s here, so we're not worried about getting raised very often here. We're going to be raising the ace-6 of spades on the right table. But yeah, so in that ace-queen hand, he just 2x jams the river, and I thought that maybe his most likely bluffs are just queens and jacks, and queens we block a little bit. So like it's just a spot where I just have to make a decision if this particular player or the population is yeah, we're just gonna fold with our ace-6 here. I think we might have missed a c-bet when I was thinking about the ace-queen hand. Ace-5 under the gun. I mean, this is 6 max right now. Yeah, this is 6 max, so we're just gonna open ace-5 since that is standard. Yeah, I just have to make a decision whether or not the population bluffs enough in the 2x jam line. I mean, it's very hard to find bluffs in that line anyway, so like unless he's going very mergy with like ace-king or maybe even like ace-10, that's probably just a line where it's under bluffed and I can just fold ace-queen, I guess. But yeah, now in hindsight, this guy is just like really, really aggro. So it folds to us in the straddle. We have ace-3. I think I'm just going to check this one time. Usually I can raise here. Usually most of my ace-x I'm raising versus limp. But I want to see a few more hands go to showdown so I can see what kind of hands they're limping with exactly. Facing 2 checks, to me, I can protect my 3. I can bet my 3x for a little bit of protection, I think. Maybe slightly on the larger size. Okay, this person limps once again. We're going to be raising with the jack-queen, and we're going to be defending our straddle with the 9-6 of hearts, especially being in position. Without any backdoors, we're going to put this into our delay stab line. So if he checks again, we're stabbing, and of course on that turn we're stabbing as well. We're going to be betting this for protection and value. And facing this best bet, I think our highest EV line is just to raise. And we get it through. On the 6, it does pair some of his hands, but our hand is still very likely the best, so we're going to size once more to get some value. And he has a lot of his range is like jack-10 and jack-x, those types of hands. So we do want to get value from those. This would be a very, very thin bet, but I do think once he calls twice that he does have a lot of jack-x here, and I don't think I mean, this could be a bad assumption that he doesn't check king jack enough, and he might raise those. Okay, so he had 5-6. So we did value own ourselves a little bit, but I think he definitely has enough like jack 10 and jack 9, especially in the offsuit combos, that we can justify maybe just going for very, very thin value there. Uh, maybe I'll star that hand. Oops. Did it save? Queen 3. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna still play my standard strategy here, even facing limps. And we know he's limping 5-6 suited, so this raise can't be bad. And yeah, with that Jack X bet, I do think he has more of like Jack 10 and Jack 9 than like King Jack and Ace Jack. We're gonna check this one behind. And we can play almost perfectly responding to raises if we think that they don't raise as a bluff often enough. So in that case, we just do want to get value with Queen Jack, since it's effectively the nut one pair Jack X if we assume that this person is raising King Jack and Ace Jack. I'm going to check this behind one more time and try to get to showdown. I don't think I'm going to be going for value at any point here. Now that I say that, I kind of want to go for value. But I think our Queen X is just too weak. We just get value owned by like stronger Queen X here, so we're just going to check back. We do in fact have the best hand, but I think Queen 3 is a little bit too weak. Maybe if I had a stronger queen, I would be more incentivized to bet that for value. One thing to keep in mind on this table is that I've been opening and 3-betting quite a lot. So perhaps I want to tone down my frequency a little bit with more of my like marginal board coverage type hands. So I'm probably going to be 3-betting less hands like Jack 10 suited, 8-9 suited. Okay, we get the call in the straddle. With the spade, we are going to continue with a protection bet here. Normally I would size a little bit smaller, but if the population is somewhat size inelastic on the flop, I think 150 is better, like I said before, to prevent us from getting leveled and just raising. Okay, we do get raised here. We're just going to fold. It's going to make a slightly tight fold there. Aaron has told me that these small raises are usually top pair protection bets. So without a queen, I'm just going to fold. It's a little bit of a disaster if he has like obviously the spade draw is can be raised there, but like it's a little bit of a disaster if he just like min raises me with like ace 7 for, I guess, quote unquote protection against like my ace x random hands. This person 3-bets us. This guy calls. I think we can safely call and hope to hit our set. And we're gonna obviously fold. Ace 10, 6 max. This is a little bit close. We do have an active, I mean, this is only 25 hands, but actually we're just going to play a little bit tight and fold ace 10. Just raise ace jack off instead. But yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, it's just a disaster if he just like raises a 7x there for protection, and uh, we end up folding like a very high equity hand versus that. But he does have quite a bit more queen x than 7x, so we will just trust that the read is correct, that it's mostly top pair type hands, and fold. We have jacks here, and we're probably just going to get it in versus this guy and this guy. 100 big blinds deep, so we're going to put in the 4-bet. We can just choose a jam size, but since like we don't expect this guy to really call that often, so yeah, a jam size is probably a little bit better. With our pair of nines here, this could obviously be a check, but I do like putting in the protection bet, and we have the backdoor spades as well for additional equity, so it's not bad. Okay, so this table is not opening up, so we might just look for another table. I'm gonna try avoiding playing in this club if possible, since we have to buy insurance, and I'm not sure I really want to be doing that. I think this is an open table though, because we're not sitting on it, right? Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna sit here. What's everyone in for? Yeah, we don't need to buy in for 3k. I mean 4k. We can just buy in for 3. Okay, we get 2s, and we could limp behind. I'm not really sure what the correct strategy versus the person that always limps is, but we can just test this out. I feel kind of gross doing this since I almost never limp 2s, but we will see what happens. And we actually save ourselves a lot of money here when this person limp re-raises. So we get to see what this person has. Okay, it checks through, which is slightly interesting. I guess this person that limp re-raised has an under pair to the ace. Man, we should have called our 2s, right? So I don't think this person is calling very often with his like queens or kings, but I guess that was his most likely hand. Unfortunately, we don't see a showdown. What will be interesting later on is when we review the footage, I'll be able to look at the other hands that have gone to showdown in more depth. Facing this 3-bet, we're obviously going to fold. We're not going to 4-bet our 10-8 of diamonds. Maybe we should have, though. Okay, on the right table, the person decides to go for a delay continuation bet for a very small sizing on that king high board. So that's something to note. We're going to raise queen jack of spades on the button. We're a little bit afraid of this guy's under the gun limping range, but queen jack is just way too strong to consider folding or limping. On this board, we're going to continue with a protection bet with our top pair, and we obviously call. And hopefully we hold. And we do get the hold, which is nice for a small pot, but winning those is always nice. It's nice to win some of these flips when yesterday I basically lost all of them. So many all-in pre's as well that were just either flips or I was just completely dominated, which is obviously not what we want to happen. I don't really like calling a6 of diamonds in the small blind. Like I said before, we have been slowing down a little bit, but I'm gonna wait maybe like 10 or 20 hands more, so they completely forget that I've been 3-betting them a lot. I don't really know if these game flow considerations are that important on these sites, or like if anyone's even paying attention to that. Okay, we're gonna be putting in this is a little bit small, but yeah, we're gonna put in the 3-bet. He has a relatively shorter stack, and the people behind us also have a short stack, so I am okay with this size. But of course not our standard versus stacks that are a little bit deeper. And here we're going to play the 2-street game. I think a little bit over half, 2/3 is like a geometric size here, so we're just going to be betting that. Going to fold the queen 10 to the open. Going to be folding the 6-4 in the cutoff, and of course the ace deuce as well. Defending the straddle with 10-8 of clubs, which is of course great. And we will be folding to a continuation bet. We do have a backdoor straight draw, but I would like to, if I was to float there or to raise, I would like a little bit more additional equity in the form of either a flush draw or like backdoor flush draw. Yeah. King 9 is a little bit loose of an open, so we're just not going to think about doing that. This guy limps the smallest blind, so we're obviously going to ISO, and taking it down pre with 100% equity is nice as well, so never going to complain about that. Going to fold the 9-10. Oops, sorry. Okay, so that 891 stack guy is just checking down. This guy stabs with Jack 10, which is, I think, okay, but I would have probably stabbed on the turn as well. This hand is uninteresting to me. I mean, here we're just gonna fold. Hopefully see a showdown. And he just has the nuts. This guy has two pair. Man. Okay, we're gonna raise the king jack in the cutoff. Man, I'm just gonna check it all the way down. That's kind of crazy to me. Hmm. Oh, accidentally timed out there. I was trying to recreate the hand, but I couldn't find the button. Okay, so under the gun limp raises. The straddle calls. Okay. I mean, the straddle does have more 5x than the under the gun opener does. But I'm not sure it's a big enough hand class to warrant checking too many ace x. Especially his ace x that opens under the gun. This is a co-spot. I think we're going to be defending at least once with our middle pair and then just fold on the turn. Going to be defending ace 6 in the largest straddle, and we have position versus all two of these guys. Here, I think facing this bet, we can float. It's a little bit awkward with this guy behind us, and since we don't have relative position to him, I think this makes it a little bit just too weak, and also this guy's stacks are a little bit too shallow to justify making this float, but this is a hand that I would float quite often if it were heads up. We have very good turns. I mean, our hand can turn very well with a variety of different cards, and we can also bluff very often on rivers with high potential. Here we're going to 3-bet. I really do not like calling hands like 7-6 in the small blind out of position, so especially giving these two of the larger blinds a very good price to enter the pot. Here we're going to be raising kings on the button, of course. 4-3 suited is sometimes a 3-bet for me, Well, actually, no. This is the button, right? This is a little bit loose. Yeah, I mean, I think this is normally a 3-bet for me in the big blind. If it was like a cutoff open in a normal 2-blind game, I think 4-3 suited is a little bit too weak to defend, especially to that sizing in the big blind, which makes it the perfect candidate to 3-bet in the big blind since we have a fairly polar range. Ace Queen, we're going to be putting in the 3-bet. With 6-8, with this many limps, I think. Like, I'm tempted to limp, but I just don't want to play the 6. I'm just like generally uninterested in these pots that are completely limped, especially like 4 or 5 ways. I'm just very uninterested. And this guy has way too short of a stack, so it's just too easy for him to jam on us. 5-4 suited can also be a 3-bet, but we're playing a slightly lower frequency 3-bet as recommended by Aaron, so we're going to adhere to that. This guy has been opening quite loosely, only 25 hands. I think we're going to start this off with a 3-bet. Calling is obviously fine. And this guy just cold calls, which is quite alarming for us. But this is a decent board for us to continuation bet, and we have the backdoor Broadway and the backdoor nut flush draw. So we're going to continue with. I mean, here I think a small bet is okay. We should not expect to get check raised very often here. Oh, excuse me. I think I have more 7x than he does because I don't think he would call with a hand like 7-8 suited to a cold to a 3-bet. So we're gonna continue barreling here. Actually, no, we're gonna check. I just realized that if we're betting King 10, we're just over bluffing here. We have a lot of better candidates like Jack 10 and Queen Jack. And if the population read is that they underfold, like it sucks if we run into like 10s here, but he just has Ace Queen, so obviously it was not getting through. But yeah, I think what I was saying before can be also backed up by what we just witnessed. This is a mistake folding 5s, sorry. But yeah, Queen Jack and Jack 10 functions better as a like a double or triple barrel because it has a better the hand selection has better removal versus their strongest ace X there, since obviously ace king is probably going to be putting in the cold 4-bet at least at a decent frequency. So I think Queen Jack and Jack 10 blocking ace Jack and ace Queen is much better than just having the King 10. So yeah, it's important I think to just not just bluff any hand that looks good to bluff with, because then obviously we can get accidentally counter exploited by someone who's just stationing, which is apparently the entire pool. So we have to be very careful with our bluff selection if we even bluff at all. Past the flop, I mean. Because, yeah, a lot of people have said that the population on these games is very sticky in general, so Our the EV of our bluffs, especially double and triple barreling, gets considerably lower versus like in comparison to like Western games where we do get a decent amount of folds. But obviously, bluff selection is important in those games too, but even more so important to in these games since the general population trend on Western games is that they overfold to triples. We're going to defend the Jack 10 of Jack 10 of hearts. This is going to be a check call for me. The ones with the backdoor flush draws are the ones I'm going to be check raising since they have the best barrel potential. Okay, this 8 is not that great for us, but of course not that great for him as well. And we can whatever. We're just gonna get in the habit of just like not bluffing until. Okay, that's actually what I was about to say, but uh, we're just gonna get into the habit of just like when we have a decision of whether or not to bluff or bet or bluff or check, we're just gonna check. But what I was saying is like perhaps I can size a bet that targets his like ace x and puts them in a tough spot, while also allowing us to bet some like lower pairs that aren't queens for value. Since I do think we should be going for some value once it checks on the turn with some of those hands. So yeah, maybe like a 40% or a 50% bet to get those like king and ace highs to fold. Maybe that doesn't even happen though. Maybe he just stations with the ace high. Which makes bluffing really bad. But yeah, it's normally it's just a disaster when you see the king jack showdown and beat you for the king jack high. But I'm okay with that, I think. Since we don't know if population calls ace high there. This guy chooses a pot-sized bet on the turn. And folds to the 6 of hearts, which is quite strange. I guess he just had like queen 10 or ace queen or something in that hand class. Okay, how long has this session been going? It's only been 40 minutes, so I think we are going to record maybe another half hour or so of footage before I go grab lunch. Here we're obviously going to be 3-betting versus this ISO. Hopefully he doesn't jam. And obviously a fold is a fine result for us. Yeah, we're not gonna be trying to steal the blinds and antes with 6-5 off on the button. That's already too loose in a normal game. But yeah, versus these 45-5 fish, we're just not getting any folds basically. And going to be folding the Jack-6. Defending 9-10 on the right table. We check again to give him an incentive to bet hands like lower pairs that doesn't continuation bet. And he does have a fairly high continuation bet in position, so when he checks, it's usually something pretty weak. Yeah, so yeah, he just usually has like some random garbage here, or like I guess some like under pairs that we aren't sure if he calls to a bet but can bet themselves, or like they're incentivized to bet for protection once check to them twice. And obviously with it just like random air that he can stab once. But then again, this is kind of not telling a consistent story, because in the previous hand we just discussed how our opponents probably don't bluff enough, or our opponents will just call too much when we bet, so perhaps just betting our 9x is better. Like, we do fold out a lot of air, but perhaps they just don't bet their lower pairs often enough to justify checking again. So maybe that was a slight mistake with our 9-10. We should just be betting the turn. Um, Versus under the gun, tens is kind of close. This is an ISO, but I think this time we're gonna call. Obviously, 3-betting is okay, but I just don't want to get it in with tens versus this particular player yet, until we've seen something tangible. And we get a fairly bad flop for us 4-ways, so we're just going to be very uninterested in this pot from here on out unless we turn a 10 and it checks to us. We are going to check behind. No reason to stab here. Turn a Broadway draw, but still uninterested without a club, and of course 4-ways, so we're just going to be folding. It's interesting that this guy that stabbed the turn checked this completely blank river. Ooh. So he stabbed with King Queen, which is a it's pretty loose 4-ways, because a lot of ace, just like weaker ace X suited, is incentivized to check behind for pot control, since you don't want to play a very bloated pot with 4 people with like ace bad kicker. And holding no clubs and being out of position to so many players is just in general a pretty dicey bet with King Queen of Diamonds there. Unless that was a bluff. In which case I don't like that selection either, since it has no clubs. And yeah, like, I guess he just check called on the river since he thought that that Luoni guy is has too many just one club hands that peel the turn and have like no equity on the river. But yeah, in general, I'm pretty sure that hand is a mistake by him. We make a huge mistake folding fives pre-flop. Maybe not though. We will fold the 9-4 offsuit, of course. I think versus a 4x 7-8 is an easy defend in the straddle. But we will fold facing a 3-bet. Oh, so what my HUD stats mean, once I got this computer, my Hold'em manager HUD settings were deleted. So I haven't had time. I should probably do that after this session because I just kind of put this one, I just threw this one together pretty quickly. It's PFR, VPIP, 3-bet, 4-bet. And on the second line, it's C-bet in position, C-bet out of position. Turn continuation C-bet, turn continuation C-bet out of position. And then river continue, river continuation C-bet. So it gives us a good picture on how often they single stab the flop and check turn and river, and how often they double barrel and how often they triple barrel, which is, I think, a pretty good stat when we're putting us in a when they're putting us in a tough decision on the river. Like if they don't if they don't 3-barrel very often, and we have like a medium strength hand, we can probably just fold. If they triple way too often, especially on with a higher sample, like this is a stat that's going to take quite a while to have a sufficient sample, since not a lot of hands are like go to 3 streets. So it'll take quite a lot of hands. But once the hands are compiled, versus under the gun, I think I'm going to fold the queen jack suited. This might be a little bit too tight. But yeah, actually I think I prefer a 3-bet here instead of folding, because this guy is opening fairly loose. And like he's opening 44%, 44 VPIP in early position. Oh wait, this is the guy that was crazy. Actually, I don't know, because he's probably capable of just 4-bet, like 4-betting huge with a lot of hands. So maybe calling is better, but in general I just don't like calling in the small blind. But queen jack is probably strong enough that I can call in the small blind. I do need to look over the ranges a little bit more, since I'm usually used to playing like 6 max, or heads up obviously, since my expertise was in heads up. So 8 and 9 and 10 max games are a little bit foreign to me. Like I was very surprised when I saw the ranges of under the gun only being ace queen suited and like 8s plus. Six eight is a little bit loose to open in the cutoff, I think. And facing a bet, we're just gonna fold. We could 3-bet this. This goes four ways to the pot. I mean to the flop. And he bets very small, 1/3 pot size bet on King 5-3, which is obviously fine. Puts a lot of pairs in tough spots, especially in these two positions, since they have to worry about what the player behind them will do as well. So like these guys end up having to fold a lot of 5x because the defense frequency is shared by all three of them. And this guy has the biggest defense responsibility, so at least I think that's how it works. I haven't seen the definitive mathematical proof of that, but a lot of like discussion on Run It Once has generally pointed that that is the correct way to think about the defense in multi-way pots. So like these guys just end up having to fold like lots of like lower pairs while this guy can still obviously call. So that size functions fairly well on these like really dry boards on King 5-3. With Ace-3, I think being a wheel ace, we just have to defend. We're gonna be playing Ace-3 in a very, very conservative manner, obviously. But we will be check calling. This 9 is kind of weird because like a lot of hands that check through do make some two pairs here, but once it checks through to us on the river, I think we do. There is some value to be gained here. Get called by some King X. Okay, we get raised. I mean, he's saying he has exactly 9s here. I mean, there's not that many King 9 combinations left, but I guess we just fold. Should have shown them the 3. I mean, actually, that's still obvious. Obviously, we have Ace-3 if we're considering calling. But yeah, I just decided to fold because, like I said, a lot of the hands that check behind end up making a pair on that 9. So, I mean, 2 pair on that 9. If that was a bluff, I think that was very high EV bluff versus our strategy, since we're folding to aggression, or over folding to aggression, purposely. So raising lines versus our bets is probably going to be very high EV if they overdo it. But hopefully we pick up on that before that happens. Okay. Which guy bet that on the river? Oh, wrong page. Who is it? Was it the guy that won the pot? No. Wait. The 8-9. Oh, I mean, I guess it's somewhat reasonable. I would do the same versus certain opponents. Trying to get them to call with like some ace high or under pairs. I mean, you don't expect the Queen X to check down all the way, I think. Was it check down all the way? Wait, wrong hand. No, it was bet on the flop once. Oh, by the guy with 8-9. So yeah, that bet might actually be pretty thin. Yeah, I no longer like that bet. since you don't get really called by, there's not a lot of ace highs that call you on that board other than specifically like ace 10. But yeah, I just don't think you're getting called by too much there to justify a bet with 8-9. I mean, that's not a board that ace high is very comfortable just stationing there. Okay, I'm going to play till my under the gun on all of these tables, and then we're going to sit out. And then we can review a few of the hands, I guess, afterwards. I think I played generally well in this session. I mean, usually my 1 hour sessions are fairly sharp since fatigue has not set in yet. But we will know for sure once we look through the hands more in depth after I end the recording, when I go back and rewatch this later. Also, I might consider posting this recording to get some feedback from other players who have played these games much more frequently than I have. Maybe there are some like pretty big leaks versus population that I haven't picked up on yet, or that I just am completely ignorant of. Okay, we're going to stand up on this table. Are we... I mean, the rake structure is designed in such a way that... Am I down a lot? Oh, I'm in for 5,500. I didn't realize. But I mean, it incentivizes play until you get even, since effective rake is larger if you lose and then you win, and then you lose and then you win, with comparison to just like always winning. But I think we will just stand up here so I can eat lunch and review this. Okay. After this, one more hand on this table. Where's the button here? Ooh, we got a raise. That sucks for him. Oh no, we should have sat out. And we just paid the straddle too. Maybe we will just play one more orbit on this table. Can't just pay the straddle and leave. And we're folding king deuce, so we're going to fold that. Alright, let's bring over Hold'em Manager so we can look at our biggest won and lost pots. So we're just up a little bit on this session, not a lot at all. As you can see, we had a brutal last session, or the previous session last night. King 4, we're just whatever. We can maybe call, but let's see. While we're waiting, can look at the biggest lost pots. Oh wait, this is the wrong session. So we didn't lose like too many just like really huge pots, just a lot of pots that I guess we end up just folding on later streets. Okay, so this one is the one I was talking about earlier on in the video. Let me drag it to the screen. Okay, so yeah, we raise ace queen of diamonds. We get 3-bet by, I mean, his stats at this time were very, very fresh. So like we didn't know what his 3-bet stats were at this time. We obviously call. We're not going to just automatically 4-bet all of our ace queen before we know what his actual 3-bet frequency is. And like I said before, we only had a few hands with him at the moment of this hand history. So we call. Flop is fairly good for us. We flop top pair, very good kicker, and of course the backdoor diamond draw as well, plus the backdoor Broadway draw. So yeah, he bets very large on this flop, which is not what we are really looking for since he's polarizing his range quite. I don't know if his range is actually polar because this line is a little bit weird. It's certainly not the most efficient since a polar range benefits the most, or like the betting scheme that most efficiently captures the pot share is a geometric bet sizing. So the line he took didn't really optimize his telegraphed polar range. Obviously, he probably doesn't know this, so I mean, it's just something that I keep in mind. So he bets large. We obviously cannot fold yet. Turn is a king, which is whatever for us. We do pick up the backdoor Broadway draw, but we're obviously not thrilled. When he bets this large on the flop, he's saying like that he has like tens. King Jack is, I think, how many people are sitting out? Yeah, we're just gonna fold and stand up. I feel kind of weird folding King Jack too, since I usually open that under the gun in 6 max, but in full ring apparently that's a fold, so we're not going to think too much about that. Alright, so anyway, back to this hand. We turn some additional equity, but like I said, when his flop bet is that large, he's saying he has tens or aces, or like ace 10 or ace king. You know, and ace 10 is somewhat discounted because a lot of the population doesn't really 3-bet ace 10 there. Sixes is not really a hand that a lot of people 3-bet either in the small blind. They usually elect to call. So he's really saying he has ace king, maybe some ace queen, and tens. Aces doesn't probably size this way. Excuse me. So he checks to us, which is kind of weird because this king is very beneficial for his range, right? I mean, we do have Queen Jack, but so does he. But anyway, he checks. And I remember in this hand, I was thinking, I mean, Ace Queen is not a hand we really want to be playing for like stacks, you know. versus this player. And since we have no history with him, he could just be very, very tight and just like always have it here. So we just check back for pot control so we don't have to play for a whole stack. And the river's complete blank, and instead of betting like 1.5k, just jams. So we do have to play for our entire stack, which foils our plan. And here it's just like if I think he bluffs with like Jack 10 suited, if he bets that, if he 3-bets that pre, or like maybe jacks or queens, but like his bet sizing doesn't really make sense for jacks or queens on the flop, you know? So I end up just folding this. Yeah, I mean, it's just if he has enough bluffs here. And I don't think he does. So like, the question is, what do I call with here? Like, I obviously don't have too many straights, because a lot of straights are incentivized to, bet the turn, right? So checking back the turn with straights is usually not the best idea, especially versus a supposed strong range. So, I want to be getting it in on the turn and then the river with a straight. So I don't have too many straights. So the question is like, what do I call with here? So obviously I call with some of my sets that maybe I check on the turn. I also don't know if I check all my sets there, but I do definitely bet some tens, obviously, that I can get some value with from like ace king and ace queen. And ace 10, which I obviously can have. And that's it. And I'm not even absolutely convinced that I need to call ace 10. Because he could just be massively under bluffing the spot. But yeah, like his only real hands that make sense to bluff here are, I guess, king jack, if he wants to do that. Like king jack and queen queen is like a hand that he most likely needs to turn into a bluff for this call to make sense. Like king jack exactly, or king queen. And maybe some 10 jack and queen 10. But I'm just like not convinced that they actually do this often enough. And like Jack 10 and Queen 10 don't really make sense for the sizing that he chose on the flop, since he just sized close to pot. Like again, these are just assumptions that I'm making. Like I would not obviously bet like jacks or queens for 700 into 800 on the flop, but maybe they do. But like without seeing his actual hands, I have to make some assumptions about how he's playing this. So I just think the lack of natural bluffs here that show up on this river just makes this a fold. So that's, I guess, one hand. Okay, we have queen jack in the second blind, in the big blind. Oh, I remember this hand. Yeah, well, I value owned myself in this hand. So we ISO this guy who limps in the smallest blind. And he is successfully ISO'd, and we are in position with a fairly strong hand. Flop is 4-5 jack. We bet for protection, which is obviously okay. I usually size smaller, but yeah, I usually size smaller so I can bet some of my ace highs for protection as well, which I have a decent amount when I ISO the small blind. And the turn is a 6. I think that some of his like straight draws pair on the 6. But a lot of his range, especially when I size a little bit larger. I mean, this could just be. I mean, they're probably size inelastic. Let's be honest. So the sizing doesn't really matter here. Like I don't. If I bet like 200 here, I think he still calls 5-6. If I bet 100, he calls 5-6. And if I bet, I mean, maybe if I bet pot, he calls 5-6. So maybe I should stop spending energy thinking about how they call versus different sizing, since they're probably just inelastic. But what I was saying is, like, since we bet large, most of his range is still in the Jack X region. He will have some like 5-6, like he actually does. He'll have some 6-7. He'll have some like 5-7 type hands. Uh, Obviously, some hands maybe like pocket sixes that beat us. But pocket fours and pocket fives are sometimes raising here, and but I think our hand is still strong enough to warrant another bet on the turn, and we size small because I think once the second bet goes in, then they start becoming size elastic. But on the flop, it's just usually inelastic. So we bet under half pot. This is a bet to really target his one pair hands that are weaker than us, and I think during the video we decided that King Jack and Ace Jack are probably raising pre. So we have one of the best jacks here. We have basically the nut jack, one pair jack. He calls, and then the 3 is like pretty weird. And also, I was going to say on the turn, since we have the Queen of Hearts, it makes it less likely that we get check raised here, which is always nice when we're putting in a value bet. So, like, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I bet like Queen of Diamonds, Jack X here, but I probably still do. But this is a better hand to bet for value, since, like I said, blocking cards that check raise us is obviously good. On the 3 here, he checks to us one more time, and we are not bluffing when we bet here. We size small again, about a 1/3 pot. And this is mainly just targeting his like Jack 10, Jack 9, Jack 8 suited hands that are limping. And I think there's a decent amount of that in his range. Sometimes he does have the 7, but like we can play perfectly versus his range, especially if he like plays pretty straightforward facing a bet here. Like if he's not turning a lot of hands into bluffs, then we can just bet small here for value, and then obviously get called by worse Jack X. And then when he raises, we can just make a very easy decision and fold. So, I mean, this is like really, really thin anyway, but I'm not quite sure if this is a mistake or not. Let me know what you guys think. Okay, with Ace King, we raise, you get a call. I don't remember this. Oh, yes I do. I continuation bet the flop and he raised, I think. Oh, no he doesn't. Or is that a different hand? Okay, anyway, so let's see what happened, since I clearly don't remember what happened in this hand. We size large again, which is something that I'm usually not doing in tougher games or like on Western games. Like I would never size. I mean, the larger size is okay on this texture. But if I were to size large, I would go even larger than this, like 220. I think splitting between anyway, this is irrelevant since we're not playing on those sites right now. So we size like 150. We get called. Turn is a jack, and I remember. Oh, I do remember this hand. Yeah. Okay. So in the video I said that I think population, based off like the 3 or 4K hands that I've seen, they overfold to turn aggression when the card is like a large card, So like if this flop were like 3 deuce 7, and the turn is like a 9 or something. They almost never fold facing a second barrel, so I should probably underbluff that line. But usually when like the cards are like the Broadway cards, and I'm the pre-flop raiser, they usually overfold here. So I decided to put in another bet. I do have better bluffs here, obviously, like 9-10 and 8-9. But Ace King also does a decent job at removing his stronger Queen X. But maybe not, since he did not 3-bet pre. So perhaps those like 9-10 hands are actually better. So yeah, maybe this is a slight overbluff here. But we do get raised, so we're just going to fold. So I think that might be a slight mistake. Let's just look at two more hands, and then we can end this session, and then I'll really look at the footage and maybe post another analysis or something if I see any interesting hands. Okay, do I have the ace queen or do I have the king 10? I definitely have the king 10. I don't cold call ace queen there, so yeah, I have the king 10. This guy opens fairly wide. Not that many hands, but yeah, king 10 is a fine 3-bet cutoff versus button, especially 6-handed. The original laser folds, so we are pretty worried about this guy's range. Flop is ace-7-5, and oh yeah, I think I just end up just stabbing the flop and giving up. Yeah, I mean, this 7 is obviously, like I said, better for me than it is for his. We do have to do a lot of checking on the 7 because obviously we have a very high frequency bet on the flop. So when our opponent calls, especially after cold calling our 3-bet, his range does become significantly stronger than ours on this turn in terms of ace-x. Since, I mean, not in terms of ace-x, in terms of like overall range versus range, since I still have 100% of my air basically on this turn, whereas a lot of his air has been folded on the flop. So this is a spot where it goes check check quite often, but of course I can still bet a lot of my very good ace-x here for value. But I was saying before, like the 7, he doesn't have a lot of 7s, at least he shouldn't, in his like cold calling range in the small blind to a 3-bet. So the 7 is can be prevalent in my range, since I will 3-bet some 7-8 suited and maybe some 6-7 suited if I'm feeling particularly frisky. But yeah, I mean, with our king 10, I think we just don't need to be bluffing here. Like I said, we have better hands that better bluffs that remove his likely ace-x. And I'm pretty sure during the game I said that queen jack and jack 10 is probably a better bluff than king 10 or like king queen. Since when he cold calls, he most likely has like ace jack, ace 10, or ace queen. Maybe not ace 10, so probably queen jack is the nut bluff there. Since ace king is probably 4-betting. So yeah. Queen jack and maybe jack 10 is better than king 10. Well, queen jack is definitely better than king 10. And we are just uninterested in this pot, and we check. There's maybe some merit. I mean, I don't have any offsuit king 10 really here, so I mean, maybe I have some, but not very often. I don't really 3-bet the king 10 off that often. So yeah, we just check down. So we don't really lose too much there, and I think I played this hand fine. 4s. Oh, I make a slightly loose call to a 3-bet, I think, yeah. I mean, this guy is very short, so like the implied are. I mean, we do get this entire stack basically if we make a set, but and maybe this guy as well. But I think we're a little short, and we obviously just fold to aggression. Yeah, so maybe a slight pre-flop mistake. Oh yeah, this hand. So this is right after we folded to his like 2x jam on the river, or I guess it was only like 1.5x jam. So he has ace king. We three bet our jacks. Obviously, cut off versus button, and this jack guy just jams, just piles it all in. Got to play for all of our chips. So obviously this guy calls. He has like nothing left, and like this is just spew. Like he's isolating this guy for like 300 chips and then my extra 300 chips at the risk of like 3k, right? Like it just doesn't make sense to me. Like he can just cold call if he wants to really play this hand, but like he just jams the king queen in there and then we like tank fold and then he wins the pot. But I mean, if he's jamming king queen here, I think jacks is just an easy call versus his likely wide range. And tens, we bet once, get raised, fold. Okay, yeah. So these pots are starting to become smaller. So less interesting. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think.